I'll call this meeting of the Seward City Council to order at 7 p.m. This meeting is November 14th, 2022. Chief, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Tonight's roll call: Wells.
Here.
Bosenga.
Here.
DeMoss. Here. Finch.
Here.
Calhoun.
Here.
Mayor McClure.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. We're now to citizens' comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. Do we have any public hearings tonight? We have none. So you can speak on any topic. You'll get, if you've signed in, you'll have the first shot at it. It's limited to 3 minutes per speaker and 36 minutes total time. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed in?
We do. We have one person. It is Tim McDonald.
Okay. You know the drill of name, etc.
Tim McDonald, inside city limits. I have two things, one real quick, and I'm just going to throw this out there. I don't want to startle anybody, but you know, I hang out with fishermen a lot, and there was a lot of chatter about the late silver run. You know, we have different small silver runs in the bay. The one over on my side of the bay was a no-show this year, the first time I can remember that in at least 10 years. No fish to speak of. And on this side, the guys were complaining about the fish. The meat smelled bad. They were going bad on ice too fast, and various things like these. And I don't know, I don't mean to be alarmist, but I actually think that our 20 or 24 inch sewer outfall line at Lowell Point and the effluent that it puts out, there's a lot of chemicals in there, and that's a 24-hour deal, and that was at the height of the season. I really think it's affecting water quality, and I think we better do some testing of these fish or something here this coming season and find out what's going on. That's all I got to say on it, you know. The other thing is, you know, I've heard the figures bandied about for this new tunnel that's going to replace the old one or supplement the old water tunnel through the mountain. And I've heard the figure of $180 million is going to be spent on that project. I'm not sure how correct that is, and I know that Seward, even though it's for us on our ground, you're a junior partner financially, just contributing somewhat into it. But my concern is, it is in our name, all that money coming from the feds and the state is being spent on our behalf. Nobody's been talking about it. What are we doing for alternative energy generation on this new project and that flume? That is a God-given perfect setup for generating continuous power. It's got the drop, 27 feet plus, which is what you need to generate. And you know, you could put generators up on that thing right now. All the old timers have probably been up the little trail, that tunnel. It's only about 80 or 90 feet high, and there's cement walls going for 40 or 50 feet coming out of the tunnel. You could set a water generator, Pelton wheel, whatever, that would trap that flow. You could set it up there with a crane right now. So I want to know what we're doing to make sure that we're generating power to assist with our extremely high bills here, and especially with this sailboat coming up that I see here on the electric utility. We need some information.
Thank you. No one else has signed in. Does anyone else in the public wish to speak on any topic whatsoever? Okay, seeing none. We are at the point of approval of the agenda and the consent agenda, and I'd ask for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of the agenda and consent agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any, does anybody have additions or deletions that they would like to make? Well, I'm going to ask to put Resolution 2022-114, the selecting Homer Electric Association as the preferred electric utility to purchase Seward Electric. I'd like to put that on the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Are there any objections? Okay, that will go on the consent agenda. And any other changes? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, we're ready to vote.
Voting on the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda, Calhoun,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Finch,
Yes.
Mayor McClure.
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda are approved, and approved on tonight's consent agenda, the October 19th, 2022 special meeting minutes, October 24th, 2022 special meeting minutes, October 24th, 2022 regular meeting minutes, October 27th, 2022 special meeting minutes, and November 1st, 2022 special meeting minutes. You have introduced ordinance 2022-015, amending the land use plan to rezone proposed Tract B Hemlock subdivision from institutional zoning district to park zoning district. That ordinance will come for public hearing and enactment on November 28th. You've approved resolution 2022-111, authorizing the city manager to purchase a new Toolcat UW56 from Craig Taylor Equipment Company to replace a 2005 Toolcat for a total amount of $61,052.80 plus 10% contingency for a total amount of $67,158.08, utilizing Sourcewell RFP contract number 040319-CEC and appropriating funds. You've approved resolution 2022-112, approving the optional one-year extension to the operating contract as amended by amendment number 4 between the City of Seward and Seward City Tours and appropriating funds. You've approved resolution 2022-113, authorizing the city manager to purchase from Southern States LLC 2 circuit switches for the Fort Raymond substation in a not-to-exceed amount of $264,100 as part of the infrastructure work planned in 2023 to replace aging equipment and increase the system's voltage capacity and appropriating funds. And you have approved resolution 2022-114, selecting Homer Electric Association as the preferred electric utility to purchase Seward Electric.
Thank you. That was a lot. Okay, we're now to proclamations and awards, and I have a whole stack here, and I'm going to be going out the door and coming over there to the podium for this. There's a whole bunch of people out there, too. It's pretty exciting. Okay, the first proclamation is, big surprise, for the Seward High School Seahawks boys swim team. And I'd like those boys to come up here and stand like up there so everybody in YouTube TV land can see, and also the coach, if you want to join them. And if people want to come in and take pictures, that would be just fine. Now that they've moved, there's room back there. This, nice. Okay, this is going to take a while. They've been told this is a very long proclamation, so I'm telling you guys, brace yourselves, okay? And then they'll get copies of this. If I can keep them from falling down. Okay. Whereas the Seward High School Seahawks boys swim team won the 2022 Northern Lights Conference Region 3 Boys Swimming and Diving Team Championship for the first time in Seward High School history. Yay. And whereas, following the very successful region championship victory, the 5 boys tied for runner-up at the Alaska State Swim and Dive Championship meet in a sport without enrollment population classifications. And whereas the quest for these 5 young men representing one of the smallest teams in the Region 3 championship meet to be more competitive, resulted in them beating 9 schools with 66 points, edging out Colony's 64 with 26 boys on their team. And whereas runner-up Colony had over 4 times as many participants on the boys' side in Region 3, and we're not even close. Whereas the boys, I mean, they walk on water. The boys' efforts at state championship meet earned them 51 points total, enough to share runner-up trophy winners with Eagle River. And I might need a drink of water here. Whereas second place finish in a non-school enrollment classified sport is one of Seward High School's best such performances. I can't do this. Could I get a drink of water? Sorry. Since the state runs of boys basketball teams to 1950 and 1961, which were also unclassified and ended up with Seward as runner-up. And whereas Nicholas Ambrogiani, Benjamin Ambrogiani, Jackson Bird, Ivor Gates, and Paxton Hill had an exceptional meet for the Seahawks, resulting in new best times for all of them individually as well as their relays. And whereas Nicholas Ambrogiani, Benjamin Ambrogiani, Jackson Bird, and Paxton Hill at the region meet captured all 3 school records in the relays. They broke the record they had previously been broken on multiple occasions this season, the 4x100 freestyle relay by 5 seconds. They also destroyed the medley relay by nearly 4 seconds, along with the 4x50 freestyle record by over 3 seconds. Whereas first place in 200-yard freestyle relay with 1 minute 30.26 seconds, Ambrogi, Bird, and Hill in Region 3 championship meet. And whereas first place in 400-yard freestyle relay with 3 minutes 20.21 seconds, that same group, in Region 3 championship meet. And whereas first place in 200-yard medley relay with 1 minute 40.72 seconds, Ambrogiani, Bird, and Hill in Region 3 championship meet. And whereas Jackson Bird, Sr., at state swam near his lifetime best in his individual event in his preliminary swim to finish 9th in a time of 1 minute 3.57 seconds, less than 0.15 seconds off his best. He took first place in Region 3 championships in 100-yard breaststroke with 1 minute 3.43 seconds, and page 2. Whereas Nicholas Ambrogiani, a junior, swam a new lifetime best in the preliminary round of the 50 freestyle event with a 22.45, advancing him to the finals, where he improved another 0.02 to 22.43, placing him 7th at state and earning the team 4 points. He took second place at Region 3 championships on the 50-yard freestyle with 22.69. And whereas Paxton Hill, a senior, swam very near his lifetime best, that's pretty good, in the preliminary round of the 100 butterfly with 53.86, advancing him to the finals, where he outswam his seed placement for state to finish 5th and earn the team 4 points. He took first place in Region 3 championships in the 100-yard butterfly with 53.76. And whereas Benjamin Ambrogiani, a junior, swam a lifetime best in the preliminary round of the 100 freestyle with a 49.05, advancing him to the finals, where he improved 0.34 seconds to a 48.71. With his new lifetime best of 48.71 in the final at state, Ben earned himself a podium 4th place finish and earned the team 5 points. He took 3rd place in Region 3 championships on 100-yard freestyle with 49.64. And whereas Ivor Gates, a freshman, took 6th place in Region 3 championships in the 100-yard breaststroke with 1 minute 10.93 seconds, and whereas in the 200-yard medley relay, the team of Benjamin in the backstroke, Jackson in the breaststroke, Paxton in the butterfly, and Nicholas in the freestyle re-broke their school record from the region championship by 0.59 to place 5th at the state championship meet, earning the team 8 points. And whereas, in the 400 freestyle relay, the team of Benjamin Nicholas Jackson and Paxton finished in second place by less than .10 to Robert Service High School with a time of 3 minutes 15.37, which in addition to dropping nearly 5 seconds off their previously set school record from the region championship meet and earning the team 14 points at the state championship meet. And whereas in the 200 freestyle relay, the team of Ben, Nick, Jackson, and Paxton emerged from the battle victorious by nearly a second over the next closest team, Robert Service High School. The boys improved on their school record and region championship winning time from the week before by an astounding 1.62 seconds, or an average of a little over 0.4 seconds per leg, earning the team 18 points at the state championship meet. And whereas this would not have been possible without the guidance of their coach, Solomon D'Amico, who teaches the athletes core principles of improving athletic performance and who allowed the athletes to take the reins of their journey so they could own their outcomes. Now, therefore, I, Sue McClure, Mayor of the City of Seward, Alaska, do hereby congratulate the Seward High School Seahawks boys swim team and congratulate them on their wins at region and state, dated this 14th day of November, 2022. Congratulations! So could you distribute this to them, please? And then we have one more proclamation I think you boys should just stay up there for, because it sort of involves you two. I made it through that one, so I thought I was going to have a coughing jug.
Paraphrase.
This one has a picture. It has a picture of it. And this is for the coach. So, coach, whereas Solomon D'Amico is an alum of Seward High School and is the swimming coach, and whereas Solomon has achieved a winning record against teams that are 10 times larger than Seward High Schools, and whereas Coach D'Amico is an example of someone who believes that a small school can make it in a big competition, and to never underestimate the power of perseverance, he always encourages his athletes to reach for their goals. And whereas Solomon D'Amico was named the region's Coach of the Year in 2021 and 2022 in Region 3 Boys Swimming and Diving Championship Team at the Northern Lights Conference Championships at the Palmer Pool. And whereas under Coach D'Amico, the 2022 Boys Swim Team won the Region 3 Championships in Palmer. And whereas with Coach D'Amico, the Boys Swim Team took second place in the Alaska School Activities Association First National Bank Alaska Swim and Dive State Championship in Anchorage. And whereas Solomon D'Amico was the swim coach for Olympic champion Lydia Jacoby from 2014 to 2022. And whereas Solomon D'Amico is scientifically minded, has an incredible dedication on the pool deck and in the weight room, and has put in thousands of volunteer hours. And whereas Coach D'Amico's athletes gain an understanding of how important it is to respect and believe in the process of coaching and teamwork, and whereas Coach D'Amico is intelligent and is always learning more and brings his knowledge to the team daily during practices. Are you embarrassed yet? It should be. Whereas Solomon D'Amico coaches his athletes to work as a team, and he raises every member up to their fullest potential. He is a positive influence on our kids and in our community. And now, therefore, I, Sue McClure, Mayor of the City of Seward, Alaska, do hereby recognize and thank Coach Solomon D'Amico for his service and dedication to the students of Seward High School and congratulate him on his many accomplishments. Dated this 14th day of November, 2022. So this is your chance to say something, if any of you choose. I mean, I've taken up all this time, but if you would like to speak, or if the boys would.
You guys have anything?
I know that kind of puts you on the spot a bit here.
Whereas.
Congratulations,
Thank you. Thank you all so much for the support here. The proclamation, giving us the floor for this little bit of recognition. It means a lot to these guys. I don't know that it's fully sunk in for them what a big deal this is for our community. But this is going to go a long way in helping that effort. It's a very special group of guys and girls. We did have girls on the team too. Yes. And the parents were incredible throughout this. The community was incredible throughout this. And it was a big group effort. So I just want to say thanks again, and maybe we'll give them another round of applause.
Oh, yeah! Congratulations.
Yeah, I was just thinking.
Thank you so much. Nice, huh? Did you guys say thanks?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's like a little, they like snap.
Thank you guys. Thank you all so much.
It's going to take them a few minutes to exit, so we'll just wait.
Which is great.
Now it's empty.
Rumor has it the hair hides the gills.
Well, just as a follow-up to that, it's just really wonderful to have success from our school. It kind of takes me back to the days when I was in high school here, and our band used to win awards and stuff, you know, and we were always the little band that could. But
Yeah.
when you're from a smaller school, you get more recognition somehow for the effort you
Well,
put
yeah.
in, you know, so this is wonderful, as someone who doesn't swim. Okay, things are settling down now, and we are now at the city manager's report. Madam City Manager, would you report?
Thank you. It's a little hard to follow all
I
that. So I did ask Chief Nickel, who is lead on the animal shelter project, to provide an update this
Thank
evening.
you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I just wanted to give you guys kind of an update on where we're at with everything with the animal shelter. Make this as complete as I can for you. We're in the process of finishing the final tasks, which included fixing some items that we discovered during our final walkthroughs. These items are generally regarding life safety for the animals. For example, we're eliminating sharp edges where the animals may cut themselves. We're ensuring the animals can't fit their heads through or under gaps in the chain link fence, you know, and further hurt themselves or even get strangled or something. There's also a couple of construction or design or overall plan changes. For example, we found a small area in one hallway where the flooring adhesive didn't hold, so getting that fixed. We're also having a larger gate prepared for the ease of getting the ACO van into its parking space there. The biggest
and best news as of today is we think we've worked out the cat kennel issue. So we found a vendor that's working with us, and we've got one of our local partners who's helping get them shipped up here. And so the only thing really remaining is kind of a purchasing snafu, I guess you could say. They're not the type of company that accepts like our traditional purchase orders and stuff, so they need a card, and so we're working that out, which, you know, I'm confident we can figure that one out. But it's going to be great. That's one of the biggest roadblocks to getting this project completed is those cat kennels, and so we want to get those done right, and I'm looking very much forward to having those done. Also, we'll be coming back to you pretty soon here. It looks like we've got we've been given a grant from ASPCA for $20,000 to help with some of the furnishings. So, you know, I'll be asking your permission to accept that. And then, lastly, I just wanted to update you on the contingency for this project. We currently have $46,723.63, if my math is correct, of the contingency left of the original $175,500. Change orders have included things like the shower inside, the building color itself, along with the roof. The roof material was different at that color that we chose. The snow melt system, which some of you have been on council long enough to remember, you know, we came and talked to you about that. The Knox box, the window change to match the color of the building, the data ports and camera system conduit rough in, so that, you know, they did the work so we can put our cameras and data ports in there. And the concrete slab for the dog kennel area outside. So, and there should be, yeah, I mentioned the snow melt system. So that's where we're at. Any questions or anything before?
Well, I should probably ask, is there an approximate date yet-ish?
I wouldn't want to put a date on it just because I can't say how long shipping takes and all that sort of thing. So, but that's something that we will definitely communicate to the community when the time is right.
Because we want a big celebration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Councilmember Wells, sure.
Yeah, I just have a quick question regarding, it's the cat kennels?
Mhm.
Is that's what we're waiting for somebody to build, is that right? Or we're just waiting to figure out a way to pay for it?
Well, the biggest thing really was finding a vendor.
That would
we've
could
reached out
manufacture it?
to, yeah, we've reached out to so many of these, you know, quote unquote vendors, but because of where we are, most of them wouldn't even respond, like absolute silence. And it's just incredible, you know, and so now we've got one that's working with us and we're happy with it. The kennels that they have are ones that we wanted anyway. So, yeah, I'm just like full steam ahead on this.
Okay.
And the prices are good. You know, just to give you a little bit more on that, I was even exploring options of having the kennels fabricated. And the good news with this company is if all this works out, it's going to be considerably cheaper still than having them fabricated. So I was real happy with that too.
Great, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you very much for that.
I don't have anything further unless you have questions. Oh, I'm sorry, I do have something
Okay.
further. I'm still caught up on the swimming part, but anyway, the item that you'll see in your packet is the report from Victus with the follow-up survey regarding sewer community recreation center funding options. That report is in your packet. So the topic of the recreation center will be on the November 28th agenda for council direction or whatever you would like to do. Just wanted to add that item.
Thank you. I will ask for, a comment and then a question. If you haven't noticed, there are some Christmas lights going up around town, and especially by the library in the fairy garden or whatever they call that, and down at the pavilion. And so I was going to ask the city manager, have we gotten all the lights, and is it just going to keep appearing as we drive around town?
We have. I believe that we received almost everything. There's still some stuff coming, and we're hoping it gets here before Christmas. But, so there's still some supply chain issues. But yes, we have most of it, and it's just gonna keep building. And thankfully, the weather's been holding, so we're super excited about that. And thankfully, the staff that are going to be working on it, they're doing a great job.
Well, it's fun to drive around town and suddenly find new lights. It's like, whoa, so it just keeps building. And it's before Thanksgiving, which was my suggestion, Thanksgiving, so wow. Other questions for the city manager from city manager's report? Let's see. No questions? Okay, good report. Next, we have a city clerk report, if you have a report. It's just on the agenda.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Our new format keeps things on the agenda, even if we might not have one, so I will call sometimes for something that they didn't have one. Then following that is the city attorney report, and I believe we have attorney Sam Severin on the phone.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. And
I am on the phone this evening.
okay, and the report is on page 63 of the packet. Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry, jumped on you there.
No problem. Congratulations to the swim team. That was fun. In the normal course, and keep it relatively short, the very first thing on there says we advised on an appeal from the suspension of a chauffeur permit, and that resulted in a hearing on November 3rd when I was just recently down there. Just a couple I wanted to talk about is the planning one. Essentially advised on abatement of encroachment in the city right-of-way and assisted in issuance of a notice of abatement. That was on Mr. McDonald's property where the campground had been. And there's been a couple of enforcement actions initiated that have been both thankfully resolved in a productive and relatively amicable manner. And so I'm glad to see those getting resolved. And that is, that's really about it. I think a lot of the other things you've either seen or they're, just tend to be sort of works in progress that are relatively private. So unless there are any questions, I will just stay on and hope to be as helpful as I can be this evening.
Okay, thank you. Councilors, are there questions for the attorney? Yes, Councilmember Demas.
Thank you. Hi, Sam. I have a quick question. It says under general matters, we analyze city responsibility for potentially dangerous trees. And I was wondering what you came up with that. What is the city's responsibility?
Yeah, it tends to be pretty fact specific, I can tell you that. This was, a relatively rural area, and in this instance, we deemed that there was no responsibility to do anything, but it's all going to be really fact specific, like did the city cause it, or what is the land ownership, and so I guess that wasn't a general tree issue. It had to do with one kind of up on the hillside in an area of sort of mixed ownership, and so that, yeah.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there other questions for the attorney? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Thank you, Sam, and if you stay on, that would be good. We have no other reports and announcements, but we have a presentation from the Seward Small Business Development Center, SBDC, presentation, there she is, by Kellyanne Cabaron. And there is a report on page 65 of the
Hello, Mayor McClure, City Council members, and City staff. I'm here to report on kind of the third quarter metrics at Alaska CDC. For those in the room that might know, I first want to start off by saying thank you to our city and the generous contributions from the Chamber of Commerce for making this position available to small businesses here in Seward, because it's being really well received. And as someone that's proud to live in a city with a female mayor, a female leader of our Chamber of Commerce, a female leader of AvTech, I'm happy to report that we ended our fiscal year on September 30th, and I am the first on the Kenai Peninsula's history to get perfect internal metrics. And what that means is that people are using these services, and we've seen double Seward intake than we ever have before. And total client hours for ending the fiscal year, I started this position January 1st, was 480 hours. That's hours with one-on-one with small business owners at various stages of their small business journey. Total clients, 82 businesses have used these services since January 1st. New business started and bought. There have been 10 new business starts or buy-sell acquisitions in our community that have used these services. Jobs supported, 414. This is based on them filling out their 2022 annual survey, so businesses that I've worked with directly. Capital infusion, 3,424,190. There was a big boost in that with the ARPA and second round of COVID relief. So I don't expect it to stay that high in the future. A large, about 2 million of that was due to the second release of COVID earlier this year, COVID relief funds. And then for our client surveys, 100% positive. So all in all, with the hours for advisors and the IBIS World Industry Reports that are valued about $9.25 each, meaning we're sharing this with all 82 clients that come in. I think it's been a great investment and super rewarding for me and for the small businesses using the services. And that's pretty much it for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions from council for Kellyanne? I have a question. What was your time?
Oh, for Mount Marathon? I know, I'm sorry, my boss wrote about Mount Marathon race in the report, so for those of you who don't have the report in front of you. I believe it was 106, I think, yeah.
Okay, I beat you. I had to make sure, back in the day.
Not this year.
Not this year. But it was always good. That was, I have to say, when men and women were together when I first started racing, and I passed a whole lot of guys on the top half of the mountain. It was very rewarding.
Wow.
Thank you very much. Well, that was in her report, I had to ask. Okay, so now we move along. Yes, I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
Councilmember Calhoun.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little out of step here. I apologize. This is actually, I guess, for the city administration. I'm sorry to go back. Do we have a report, and I may have missed something on the library?
On the
boiler
repairs?
situation?
Okay.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, if I may?
Thank you. I should have asked that too. Thank you.
So the contractor was here Saturday, late into the night, and working on the system. The diesel portion of the boiler system is somewhat working. There's parts that need to be acquired that are not in the state, and so they're being air-shipped here and will be installed. The electric part of the boiler is working, so there is heat, and it's working, but not great. So there are other items that they're going to come back for to go through the entire system. But as far as emergency repairs, there is heat there now. But this is going to be continuing for a while.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess I should have asked about that too. As a follow-up, will they be opening tomorrow?
Yes, they
then?
will be opening. There is heat and it
Okay.
is safe to open.
That was a big concern if you didn't know why it was closed. Thank you very much for that. We can backtrack if we need to. Does anybody else have questions? Okay. Moving along then, if you look at page 2 of our agenda, we pretty much went through everything on the consent agenda. And there are no public hearings, no ordinances for enactment, no resolutions requiring public hearing, and no unfinished business. So under new business, we do have a resolution. No, that's on the consent agenda too. We put that one, Resolution 2022-114 on the consent. So we're down to action memoranda. We have one, action memorandum 2022-001. Madam Clerk, do I ask you to read that at this point? I'm not used to these.
I'm happy to, or you can.
I can read it. Okay. It's adopting the Port and Commerce Advisory Board PACCAB priorities for the calendar year 2023. It's found on page 282 of the packet. And here's where as a newbie, do we need a motion for this? And a second to adopt? Okay, I'd ask for a motion and a second to adopt the PACCAB priorities.
I move for the adoption of 2022-011, adopting the Port and Commerce Advisory Board priorities.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and you'll see them at the beginning on page, actually, 283, it discusses it. Yes. Is there any discussion about this?
Madam Mayor,
yeah,
if we may give a report, I'm actually going to ask the Assistant City Manager, who works with PACCAB, to provide the report.
Okay.
So, thank you, Madam Mayor. Typically, this has come before council as a resolution. It goes on the consent agenda and stays on the consent agenda and gets passed without any discussion. And the reason that we wanted council to have some discussion is that PACCAB itself has had a lot of conversations over the last year about its mission and goals and what they want to work on. And as an attachment, so on page 285 and 286 in your packet, I put in the information from code on the roles and powers and duties of PACCAB. But on page 283, you've got before you the 11 priorities that PACCAB passed in a couple meetings ago on what they believe they should be working on in 2023. And so we were hoping to have some discussion from council on what exactly you guys want them to be working on. I was going to give a shout out to Linda Paquette. She's the vice chair of the Port and Commerce Advisory Board. She came and met individually with the city manager for an hour and met with myself twice for probably a total of 2 hours to talk about PACCAB and where it's going. And Linda's been chairing the last 3 meetings, I believe, because Brandy's been out of town. And the board just really wants to know from council, what do you want them to be focusing on in the coming year? For those who aren't familiar, PACCAB's pretty constrained in terms of their calendar. They take a summer hiatus for the months of June, July, and August. So basically they get 9 regular meetings and they traditionally have a work session as well each month. So their schedule's pretty tight. Yeah.
Okay, and I see on page 284 administration's recommendations. Do you want to speak to those?
Yes, Madam Mayor. And these are just my personal recommendations. I think with the PACCAB calendar being what it is, item number 1, explore and promote energy alternatives. That's a very, very, very expansive topic. So not saying it needs to be removed, but again, they've got 9 regular meetings and 1 work session, so their time is somewhat short. And then item number 2 is very, very vague, and I think you want them to work on actionable items. And number 2 is pretty expansive. So
Could you state what that is?
I'm sorry. So item number 2 is promoting the quality of life for Seward residents. And that's actually listed in code as one of the items that they can work on, because it gives them the ability to talk about all kinds of stuff, but in terms of like an actionable goal for the year, it's pretty broad. So.
Okay, bringing it back to council, how do you feel about it? Our options would be just to accept all 11 or make modifications. if anyone feels strongly. Councilmember Demas.
I also was gonna suggest to remove number 2, and I would be open to removing number 1. I think it's important to have clean, actionable items on here.
Okay, do you want to make a motion to that effect?
Is there, I'm just kind of looking at the rest of it. Okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and motion to remove items number 1 and number 2 from the priorities for the PACA action.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion on that motion to remove those 2 items. No discussion? Okay, those are the 2 items that administration recommended, and they are brought. Okay, are we ready to vote on that motion? Okay, Madam Clerk.
Voting on the motion to amend the PACA priorities, Finch,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Calhoun,
Yes.
and Mayor McClure.
Yes.
That motion is approved.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, I guess you can remove, you can also add stuff. So if there's something that you really want them to work on that they didn't have on their list, they would love to hear that, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I ask, this is a document that we could at some point in the year add to or remove also? It's not,
Yes.
it's fluid, right?
Yes.
So if someone comes up with something, maybe this isn't what we've been thinking about all week with everything else going on, I'm afraid that's what's going on here, so.
Yeah.
Does anybody have anything else to add or delete? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to vote on the acceptance, or the adoption.
Voting on the motion to approve the PACA priorities as amended. Calhoun,
Yes.
Wells,
Yes.
Finch,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Mayor McClure.
Yes.
That motion is approved.
Okay, so now we're finally down to the really exciting part here. Other new business, well, the rest of it was exciting too. But this is where we hear the applicants for the council seat vacancy. And at this point, we have applications from 2 people, Kim Kowalski-Rogers and Robert Barnwell. Madam Clerk, do you want to speak to?
Yes, ma'am. Late this afternoon, I did receive an email from Suzanne Towsley withdrawing her application due to some family concerns. So rather than 3, as are on your ballot and in the packet, you have 2 candidates, Kim Kowalski-Rogers and Robert Barnwell.
Okay.
I have the timer set for 10 minutes if you want to time them. I don't know if
They
you
each
wanna-
get 10 minutes?
They're doing presentations.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
There's shock running through the crowd here. Okay, well, let's go in order then. Kim, would you like to speak? And then Robert.
I don't have 10 minutes.
Okay, well,
Madam Mayor, Council, my name is Kim Kowalski-Rogers. I was born and raised here in Seward, and except for about 6 years, I've lived here my entire life. None of my siblings live here, but I do have a son and 3 nieces and all their families who are part of the city, some in business and some working workforce. I was a business owner. I owned a bowling alley for 15 years. I also worked in government, city government, for a total of about 32 years, most of which was in finance. I am a member of the Pioneers of Alaska and the organizer and a member of the Seward Community Band. And I have no agenda. I think that I love this little town and I want to help any way I can. So that's the only reason I threw my name in the hat. That's it.
okay, thank you. Bob, do you want to speak?
Hi, I'm Bob Barnwell. Thank you, Kim, for applying too. I have lived here since 1999. I live on 220 Bluefield, across from the Sioux. in Downford Christie. I retired here from teaching in 2017. My wife and I, we raised 3 daughters. They all graduated from Seward High School and are living elsewhere at present. I retired from teaching. I taught for 30 years, 10 years in Alaska, and about 15 here, and 5 overseas. Turns out one of my former students, when I was teaching 4th grade in Alaska, was in the audience today. Her son was one of the swimmers. Small world. I can't believe she recognized me too, which is pretty weird. I'm getting older. It's weird. You don't see that. You don't see that on yourself, but it seems to be happening. I commercial fished for 15 years in Western Alaska, and then broke my back and ended up running the Alaska Pure Charters out of here for 7 years on the Darby, and pretty much how we put our daughters through college. I am presently serving on the Citizen Advisory Board for the state parks, and I represent Seward for the Cook Inlet Aquaculture Association, and I have held numerous positions with the Seward Seward Ski Club, so I've been involved in that for 20 years. I'm basically doing this because I have the time, and I have a strong interest in the health of Seward, City of Seward. I love this town. It's given a lot to me. It's been really good to me. I feel like I've have a lot of intimate knowledge of this city, having taught here for so many years, as well as owning businesses here and having my daughters involved in all the sports. And I think my skill set fits pretty well for City Council. My degree's in literature, and I have a master's degree in teaching. I am a good listener. I'm a pretty good team player. I don't, like him, I don't really have an agenda. I just really want to help out as needed. I think that's it. Yeah, any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so what happens now? Madam Clerk, do you want to explain it just so the public can hear it from you?
Yes, so in front of you, council, are little ballots, and if you would, you have to disregard the name Towsley since she withdrew, so you have 2 candidates on the ballot. If you would mark your vote for one and sign it and pass it over, I will read the results. When you have a majority, then you can make a motion to appoint. Thank you. Okay, reading ballot number 1. 1 for Barnwell. 1 for Barnwell. 1 for Barnwell. 1 for Kowalski Rogers. 1 for Kowalski Rogers. 1 for Barnwell. So that is 4 for Barnwell, 2 for Kowalski Rogers.
Okay, so we have a majority. We have the 4 for Barnwell. What I would need now, I believe, is a motion to appoint Bob Barnwell to the City Council seat. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I move to appoint Barnwell to the City Council seat.
And a second.
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appoint Robert Barnwell to the City Council seat, which would last until the election in 2023. We ready to vote? Madam Clerk.
Voting on the motion to appoint Robert Barnwell to City Council. DeMoss?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Mayor McClure?
Yes.
That motion is approved, and I am happy to deliver his oath.
So now, Ms. Boggs, you have to come up here, and she swears you in. It's that quick.
Okay, so, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Robert Barnwell,
I, Robert Barnwell,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Alaska,
the Constitution of the State of Alaska,
and the laws and ordinances
and the laws and ordinances
of the City of Seward, Alaska,
of the City of Seward, Alaska,
that I will faithfully and honestly
that I will faithfully and honestly
discharge my duties
discharge my duties
as City Council member
as City Council member
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
You won't be able to get through this if we're going around it.
And then if you, I'll just call them, do later, get you all set up, but for now, if you want to go to the other door and you can have your seat.
We have to do this going around outside thing because they sit too far back, that's the deal. Just kidding. Welcome.
Nice.
We just cleared your spot. We had taken it over, so we were clearing it out while you're taking
Now we're all
it over.
reconsolidated.
So have you read your packet there, Bob?
Yeah. We will.
I wondered if you'd read your packet yet?
I actually scanned it.
Okay, well, thank you. You see before us for the first time in a little while a full council. Yay. And I won't talk about the size of shoes you have to fill because that was my seat, you know that you took.
She'll also beat you on the marathon.
I was saving that for whomever.
Sue can still beat me on that.
I could.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're not done yet. That was the thing, but now we have one more item of business tonight, I believe, at least. In other new business, number 2, we have the introduction of an ordinance 2022-016. And Madam Clerk, when you're ready, could you read that?
Ordinance 2022-016 is amending Seward City Code 15.10.140B 49 definitions, lodging, 15.10.226B land uses allowed, modifying and including additional regulations relating to lodging, short-term rentals, and 15.10.226 land uses allowed table.
Thank you. What I need is a motion to introduce and a second, please.
I move for the introduction of ordinance 2022-016.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and administration, I know you've got something planned for this, so.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you can tell, the normal process is to have ordinances for introduction under the consent agenda. However, this has been a topic that has been worked on for a long time at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and also I think the public needs a little more information, and that's really the purpose of it. You have it in your packet, but we also wanted to give you this opportunity to ask further questions and to give the information to the public. So, and you know Jason Bickling, who's the Director of Community Development and works with Planning and Zoning Commission, has the report for you.
Okay, thank you. Jason, go ahead.
All right, yeah, I just wanted to say that this is, a lot of work has been put into that, and I'll get into some specifics in a minute. And so, and also too, just because you can look at like the code that we put in there, but that doesn't necessarily make it a little bit easier to, sometimes it helps to have something to digest it and kind of help you understand what that exactly means and how that's interpreted. So, so that first slide there, I just wanted to talk about a few things. Is that short-term rental regulation? This is a topic that we've been digging into. Been here about a year now, and this is kind of came in on day one. We've been doing a lot of different research, but short-term rental regulation is not the solution. It's part of the solution, and there's lots of other things that go into creating kind of keeping a community healthy and in balance. And so this is one piece of it. We also are pursuing those other pieces of promoting growth, residential growth, and looking at our current land use and making the best use of our land that we possibly can, which we have we'll be working on that this winter. So one of the major goals is just to protect residential housing, and to hopefully doing some things that will actually help lower prices or decrease specific types of demand. And specifically too with this one, we do want to protect single-family homes in all zones. That seems to be, we need families to move here or to have homes here to help keep our economy healthy and help keep our schools growing and to help all those things happen. And so those are kind of the goal of that. Protect residential neighborhoods. We also realize too that this is a topic that is pretty, it can be a little emotional for people, just because when you invest in something and you invest in your business, you don't want to feel like someone's just going to take the rug out from underneath you, which is really understandable. And so we feel like that was taken into consideration. We want to value people and their investments in their businesses that have done so. And just we've seen a lot of, whenever a house goes on the market, we see a lot of, we get a lot of calls from people that are not from here just wanting to buy it. Can I buy that property and turn it into a short-term rental? And so that's not really the kind of investment that we want for Seward, I don't think, of people just kind of land speculating and capitalizing. And so we hope that some of these things will help. We can't completely take that out. We do need to keep some of the free market in there. But we do think that this will, some of the things in here will reduce the demand for land speculators in that way. So next page, please. So in that research, many communities are way down the road in this, and some have been doing it for like 5-7 years even. And so it's great because we can do the learning. We read the research to see what kind of regulation has worked in different places. There's a lot of places that are like Seward, where they're highly valued as a destination to come and visit. And so we tend to look quite a bit at those places. We've looked at everything that people just said, hey, we're done with it. We're completely removing it out. And then there's places that took different types of steps. So one thing I did want to mention too is that we did have a lot of conversations with our attorney, both in concept as we were going through this with Brooks. And then too, like in the final language thing, he went ahead and dug through it as well and gave us recommendations, which P&Z adopted. So, but we did have work sessions on April 19th, June 21st, July 19th, September 27th. Those were all very well attended work sessions with a lot of input from current business owners, wanting to understand. And those conversations actually did that the commission use that feedback to kind of shape what they came out with. So this was I think a community process. We initially started with kind of a cap concept, and then kind of through some different things, modified it to what we feel is a good fit for the needs of the community in our situation. We had a lot of outside discussions too with business owners. A lot of people came in and said, hey, I need to understand this more. And we had those conversations. And then on October 11th, Planning and Zoning had a unanimous approval, and then the adoption of kind of the attorney recommendations of that language. So, okay, so here's kind of just plain language of what will take place in this proposed legislation. So properties that have operated historically as a short-term rental, like ones that have operated legally, which those are a far majority of them, they can continue to do so, and then they can be bought and sold as a short-term rental property. And so even though that specific property may not be, like when the code changes, that may not be allowed anymore, they are kind of what's considered kind of grandfathered claused in, but what we look at as a non-conforming use. So what that means is it can be bought, but let's say that person that buys it decides, I'm not going to use this as a short-term rental anymore. They lose that permit, and then it can never come back, because that's what the code currently says. And so, yeah, so that's kind of the way it works, but that way it values the property owner's investment in their investment property, in their short-term rental property. So these next two items, the reason why I have asterisks by them is that we've had some conversations since that was passed with Planning and Zoning, and so we're probably going to bring some proposed amendments to you on the 28th in regards to having some definitions about historically operated. Just because we did not know, like, what is an appropriate amount of nights that we can determine, like, are you operating your property historically, and are you, like, what's considered operation, how many nights is considered kind of active operation, so that way someone doesn't say, hey, I operated my thing for one night and I'm, you know, kind of misusing it or kind of holding that property captive. So we'll probably bring in those next two items as far as, it was determined that 60 rental nights as demonstrated by bed tax. So that's kind of like a proof coming around that you did in fact operate 60 nights. And so we looked at higher, looked at lower, but that seemed to kind of be a reasonable place in that. All right, next page. So I broke this presentation down by basically residential zones and commercial zones. So in residential zones, right now we have 5 primarily residential zones. Whole house rentals, like single family whole house rentals, are allowed in 2 of those zones. Basically this new one makes it so that in residential zones there cannot be any more new whole house rentals in those zones.
Could I,
Yeah.
are you referring to short-term rentals?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. These are apply. Sorry. Yeah. This is all applying to short-term rental.
Yeah.
Only.
Just make that
so
clear.
Yeah. Thank you for that clarification. Yeah. This is just short-term rentals that we're discussing here. So currently that does not exist in urban residential and R3, but that would make it so that also applies to those. We do realize that many Seward residents use having a bed and breakfast in their house as a way to supplement their income because it's not a cheap place to live, and so we want to continue to allow that. But that does have to be owner occupied, only up to 50% of the bedrooms, up to a maximum of 3. So another asterisk up there is that we do want to look at considering, and we're going to be bringing this to you as a proposed amendment, is a dwelling may be considered owner occupied if it's being occupied by a renter with a legally binding 1-year or longer rental agreement. And it can't be subleased, but the property owner would have to determine that relationship. So that's kind of residential zones is making it so that that single family structure is protected in the future in all primarily residential zones. Next page. So in commercial zones, single family structures that are not currently operating as a short-term rental can't be converted. So for instance, right now, if in a, and I want to just be clear on, there's places in town, if I were to drop someone off in that area of town and I would ask them, is this residential or commercial? There's places that they'd be like, oh, this is a residential area right here. And so it's kind of just to keep the conversion of a single family structure. That seems to be a very large demand for land speculators. But that way, right now, if the family is living in that home and they go to sell their home, it can't be bought up and turned into a short-term rental. So it kind of protects that single family structure even in commercial zones. So there's this next one just can sound a little confusing, but really you can have a single, basically like multifamily structures are the only thing that we're allowed, kind of like a whole house type of rental. It has to be in a multifamily structure. So, because those tend to be built for more of the short-term rental type of businesses. And then the next one is if a family property, multifamily property is not operating as a short-term rental, is currently existing as a long-term rental, and is purchased, the purchaser must wait 4 years to apply for a short-term rental permit. And so we have seen some of those like multifamily structures that were long-term rentals get bought. Those people are then, they're like, hey, we're turning this into a short-term rental, you need to go find another place to live. So what this does is it basically makes them wait 4 years to convert that. It does allow those people to go find other homes, and hopefully our residential development will catch up to it at that point in time. And again, just even in commercial zones too, we want to add that piece of a dwelling could be considered owner occupied if that it has a long-term rental in that main dwelling area. Next one. So, and these are some other kind of places that, through discussions, that we want to make sure we're honoring people's investments. So if someone owns an undeveloped property, what we mean by that is that there's not a structure on it. With plans for a short-term rental development that would be non-conforming, they must be in active development within 2 years. They've got to come to us and say, hey, in 2 years from now, like you've got to be in the process of developing that property for that purpose. So that kind of at least kind of sunsets that window for someone developing that property. We realize that as of late, that the last couple of years have been hard to build, whether it's expense or help and that type of thing. So we want to be sensitive to that. There will be an annual fee associated. Right now, we don't have a fee for a short-term rental permit, and $50 is what we're proposing. It's just a flat rate for each individual space that you advertise. So, for instance, if you have like a 5-plex, and each one of those, that'd be $250 for the year. What that does is that's actually really low based on kind of common practices and what places recommend. But what that does is that helps us pay for the processing. It helps pay for Hamari, our compliance tool. It helps do some of those things. And so, definitely not making any money off of that, but we do just try and offset some of those costs in time. So, right now in code we don't actually require a specific short-term rental insurance, but we ask for it. But this would just codify that so that we do have that, and make that so that we can enforce it. It's hard to enforce things that aren't in code. And then the other piece is not really code, but we are simplifying the short-term rental application process through OpenGov. So basically the first year will be a little bit more heavy lifting for our business owners to input all that, but then going on after that, it'll all be stored in there, and so they just kind of have to select a few boxes, and that will kind of update their form for that coming year. So that's kind of it's not actually super complex, but that's kind of the gist of what the commission through community feedback and came up with. So I'm happy to answer any questions at this point.
That made it sound so less complex than in the reading of it, so thank you. I really appreciate that. Questions at this point? Oh, yeah, Councilmember.
The work session you did, was that with just local B&B owners, or was that with the locals that are being affected by this?
It's just open work sessions where we advertise that anyone is allowed to show up. It's the planning and zoning work sessions. And so this, we had, anyone, just open. So we did, they were.
Because this was the first I heard of any open work sessions for that.
Yeah.
I was not aware of any of them. And I know it's affected a lot of people in the town with excess noise in their neighborhood, excess traffic late at night, excess animals running around. Was any of that input brought to any of these work sessions?
We've heard from, I would say not, the people that showed up at the work sessions were primarily business owners. Right. We have heard from, like, that's the one thing we hear from businesses though, is like, what are you doing to, or like the schools, we had the school principals showed up at the PACAB this year. So we have had different times for input for that, where people said, hey, we need more houses because we don't have houses for our teachers. We don't have, they've expressed their housing needs to us. But that's kind of the only, I guess, that was the only avenues that we got as far as looking at those types of.
Was there any discussion of capping this?
Yep. Yeah, that was a discussion that did come out at the very beginning, because that's kind of the direction we came out with. Like, hey, here's where we could cap it at, and then.
What happened to that direction?
The commission just said they thought that they could do it, come up with regulation that wasn't necessarily a cap. There's some downsides to capping.
But there's upsides.
Yep, there's no perfect regulation. There's different ways to skin a cat, and so there's upsides and downsides to each one. They thought this was the best one that allowed Seward residents to continue to make money to live here. and by allowing them to have traditional like traditional bed and breakfast out of their home, owner occupied, and then protect single family housing, but yet still allow. We do need short-term rentals to a certain degree in our community, so that was the.
Let me see if there are other questions before we can come back.
I've had plenty.
That's okay, we can come back. Councilmember Demas.
Yes, thank you. A couple questions and a comment. For Councilmember Finch, if you do have a lot of questions, you might want to actually just look back on the YouTube videos from the work sessions for P&Z and listen to it, because they covered so much of this information. That's what I did, just listened to the YouTube and attended the work sessions. So I'm privy to the conversations that have been going on for a really long time. First, I want to say thank you to Community Development and Jason for all of this work. I was part of some of those conversations in the beginning when we were talking about, okay, what's the number? What's the gap? And it's just become so much more complex and well thought out. And I really think that it's easy to say we could just pick a number, but it didn't. You know, I think that it has to be this. With that being said, I have one question. I really do agree with how it is all put out right now. And I've had the opportunity to have a lot of my questions answered and a lot of meetings with you, so I really appreciate that. The only thing that kind of stands out to me right now that I'm not sure I would support is changing the single-family structures that are not currently operating as a short-term rental in commercial zones. So if you have a small home in a commercial zone and it's currently being operated as just a home, a residential, and you're renting it, they move out, you want to sell it, and the person wants to make it a nightly rental. They cannot. But if they want to make it a hair salon, they can. Is that correct?
I guess I'd have to look at the house.
If it was just at a commercial district, like the Ka building, Kayak Adventures.
The what building?
Like the Kayak Adventures home, for instance,
right.
Or,
yep.
You know, is what I'm thinking.
Yep.
Like a little home.
Well, yeah, I mean, that one's already operating as a commercial business, but I'm trying to think of a specific property in my mind that I can think of, like, this is currently a residential home that someone could buy it and put a business in it. But
well,
yeah, you're right, you're there. And so the way that could actually be done is, like, you could say, with the exception of single-family structures in, like, central business district or something like that, that there's ways that you can tighten that up, or does that make sense? What I'm saying is that you could say, okay, not in this area, but you would allow it in this area type of thing, if that's something that you wanted to.
Okay, yeah, that's my only comment and thought.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wells.
Yes. First, thank you again for all the effort you put in this. In the beginning, I did not agree with it much at all, but I see the need and I can appreciate the amount of effort. And also appreciate you always having your door open for the community and for all of us council members for when we have questions. I've never had an issue with you giving up an hour or 2 hours, so I really thank you for that. My question regarding this, though, is on the current STR properties, second asterisk, historically operated, and I know you said that this is the rough draft and it's going to be, so I just have one thing to say. It's identified of having at least 60 rental nights as demonstrated by bed tax in one of the last 5 years. So if I'm reading that correctly, 18 through 2022, as long as you had 60 nights in one of those years, you qualify. But you also state in there that if you're not currently operating as a vacation rental, you can't be a vacation rental. So if a person was operating as a vacation rental, did 150 nights in 18, but hasn't done it since, do they qualify or do they not?
So let me understand that. So in what?
So
what page are you on?
Page number 2.
Okay.
First asterisk, historically operated.
Okay. Historically operated, yep.
So it historically operated 60 night minimum in one of those 5 years. So my question is, it also states in this proposal that no new residential Airbnbs or vacation rentals can be started. But if a person owned a home for the last 30 years, and in 2018 or 2019, they did over 60 nights. But they have not operated as an Airbnb or a vacation rental since, therefore they have not paid any bed tax, but they did back here. Do they qualify?
Yeah, so here's my clarification on that, is that basically we want to make it so that if you've historically operated in one of the last years, you can get grandfather clauses as a non-conforming use. So all you have to do is bring that to us, because we realize like the last 5 years have been slightly irregular.
Right.
And whether that's been maybe someone couldn't do it because they didn't have help to clean their house. That's a real thing. And so we wanted to make it so that if you legitimately tried to operate kind of pre-COVID or like once through COVID and we realized stuff is difficult and you actually made a legitimate run at it, then you can get your property, and I don't think this will be applied to very many properties, but you'll be able to get your property grandfathered in if the code is changing. It makes it so that your property is now non-conforming use.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Varno.
Yeah, I'm totally out of the loop, Jason, but you probably already answered this. How do you determine how many short-term rentals in the city? How do you figure out that need going forward from here?
Well, I think determining a need is I honestly think it's impossible, because I think it's one of those things is if we turn this, if you had enough cleaners, if you turn this entire city into short-term rentals, you could probably fill it. That's what's happened to like some communities where they've been converted and they've lost control and they don't actually have control of their community because they pretty much have all been converted. And then that, like, they no longer own their community.
Yeah, I totally got that.
And so there's not really like a demand, like a need per se. But we do know that like there's not enough carrying capacity in our community from just hotels. I think we've come above that, where there's a lot of businesses that depend on hotels and short-term rentals. We do feel like short-term rentals do play an important role in our economy, and they provide housing where people can go to restaurants and all these types of things, and they provide jobs for people to clean. There's lots of things that are good about it, but when they start getting out of control or getting to the point where they're competing for needs for our residents, then we have to look at kind of scaling back, and it's really hard to, I mean, it's like a moving target because every year things change so much. And so anyway, we just know that I don't think we're at that tipping point. I think there's other communities like Girdwood that are probably like, I don't know if they're going to get that place back. And there's places in Colorado and these places that I read about, like they're past that. I don't feel like we are there yet. So I feel like this is one of the things we need to do is we need to regulate. And then the fact that then after that, we have a lot of development coming with like the Hilltop Properties development, and we know that people are building houses, and so we're trying to protect that development to kind of bring back that balance so that we don't hear from the principals that our teachers don't have places to live, that the prison is like 60 positions short. We know that we have the Sea Life Center is always short. We have the Coast Guard coming, more Coast Guard coming. We have Chugachmiyut coming. We have all these needs of people that need to live here, that if we have places for them, we know that will help our community thrive on kind of a year-round economic basis. And so it's hard to say like a number, but it's more like, I hate to say it, but it's kind of like a feel. You start looking at the evidence and who's talking and some of these things, and you're able to say like we are, and look at what other communities have gone through. And so we kind of feel like we're at that tipping point where you really have to get things reined in here quickly. So that probably does not answer your question at all, but that's my attempt at answering your question.
Yeah, it's good.
Thank you. Okay, other questions? Yes,
I know
Councilmember.
what you're talking about getting overran like that. Hawaii has dealt with that, and they put a lot of restrictions in place on who could purchase houses, properties, because they were just like what's happening right now. Out of town money's coming in, buying houses to do just B&Bs. And Hawaii put laws into place to stop the purchases. It has to be, I think it's 3/4 of a year they have to live there. And they put a cap on it. And it's really helped where the locals can purchase a house and purchase land.
Yeah.
I've watched quite a few houses get sold out of town folks when locals were in the process and they just got beat up by the money.
Yeah, yep.
No, it's a problem. Well, this is just for introduction. If we have further questions, we could come to you and
Door's always open.
discuss. And it will appear on the, with some amendments, you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
On our next meeting, so we can amend ourselves if we choose. Okay, any further comments? We've moved to introduce. We don't vote, we do vote on introducing, okay. We vote a lot. Are we ready to vote to introduce this ordinance? Apparently so, Madam Clerk.
Voting on the introduction of ordinance 2022-016. DeMoss?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Mayor McClure?
Yes.
That motion is approved. This ordinance will come for public hearing and enactment on November 28th.
Okay, thank you very much. The rest of our agenda is filled with informational items and reports. We have a lot of them. If you're, like I was today, a little bit bored, you can read a lot of stuff in here. There's planning and zoning meeting minutes, which we've asked for, historic preservation meeting minutes, PAC have board, there's nothing there. And have quarterly reports from P&Z. We have the third quarter 2022 city financials. And there's also a Veterans Day proclamation dated November 11th, which was delivered to the American Legion. Is this correct, Councilman?
That is correct.
Okay. So that brings us to citizens' comments. And this segment allows 5 minutes per citizen to comment on anything they want. Are there any citizens out there that would wish to comment? There's one.
Hi, my name is Kat Sorensen. I live inside city limits, and I am the executive director of the Seward Chamber of Commerce, and wanted to just let you all know that Startup Week started tonight. You may have noticed Kellyanne Cavaretta and I ran in a little bit late. We had our opening night event over at the Sea Life Center with about 15 to 20 startup business opportunity thinkers coming by to hear about all of the steps to start a business, including getting a City of Seward business license, Kenai Peninsula tax registration and everything. So that's the first of 4 events that we'll have this week for the startup, which is a statewide event. So they're doing things in Anchorage and Fairbanks, all across Alaska. So tomorrow night we'll have How to Finance Your Small Business, a presentation from Melissa Scudder at Gateway starting at 5 p.m. On Wednesday, we're going to do a Ladies Who Launch event from 6 to 8 p.m., which is open to everybody, but it's geared towards women in the business world to try and get your get some information and advice from your peers and others in the business community. And then on Thursday, from a time in the afternoon to another time in the afternoon that I'll have to clarify later, we will be having a presentation from the Alaska Small Business Development Center on financial structuring, which will be really good for anybody kind of in the throes of planning their business. I also wanted to say thank you to Kellyanne for coming out tonight. It has been an absolute pleasure to have her in the Seward Chamber of Commerce building and to see all of the people who walk through the door, Seward locals and business people going through business. You know, it's really exciting having them come in, all really excited about their meeting and stoked on the opportunity that Kellyanne helps them find. I also wanted to say thank you for the lights. I noticed them on the pavilion when I was running in the dark, and it like made my run a little bit better, so I really appreciated that. And congratulations to Bob. A welcome to Kevin. I haven't seen you on the council yet, so welcome. And a belated congrats to Randy, because I forgot to say congrats like 3 meetings ago, so I felt bad. And then I looked it up. Sue, you came in second in 1980. That's awesome. I was like, oh, I'll try and beat her time, and I'm not going to be able to. So thank you so much.
You're not blushing, are you?
I know.
Are there any other citizens playing catch in the audience? No. Okay, seeing no other citizens, we're down to council and administration comments and responses to citizens' comments. Administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Finch and Councilmember Barnwell, I'll be contacting you to set up meetings to talk about the budget and go through the budget. And so bring your questions, and thank you for tonight.
Assistant City Manager, do you have anything?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Nothing? Okay. Well, I won't start with Bob, so I'll start over here with Council. You'll get a little break here. Councilmember Finch.
I appreciate everything everybody did tonight, especially with the sewer swim team. I heard the rumor their hair hides the gills.
That's good.
Those kids did an amazing feat for a small group as they are. I appreciate everything Jason's been working on with this B&B stuff. You know, and look forward to seeing what else we can come up with.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Barnwell, do you have any comments?
Does this thing work?
Yes, it does.
Thanks for your support, all of you, and I really look forward to working with all of you. I've heard a lot of good things about this council, and I just am excited to be a part of it and what's happening in Seward. So, thanks, Jason, for a good report there. That short-term rental thing is a really, it's a heady topic that we needed to tackle. I'm sure it was tough. So that's exciting that we're getting that going. So a lot of neat things going on. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Calhoun.
Yeah, just congratulations to the swim team. The only question I had for them is the picture had them shirtless. What happened? All the young ladies watching out there may have been interested. I don't know. So we'll see. But that's always a great thing when the small teams can come through like that, you know, and give that Hoosiers kind of story. You know, it's always a good deal. I know everybody's, you know, the short-term rental thing is a big deal. It's important. We need short-term rentals in the community. There's no doubt. We always have. We do just need to gain that control back, and I think we're headed in the right direction. Remember that when it's all said and done, anything in these ordinances and stuff that we pass and change can always change again if we find out it's not working the way we thought it would. So it's just something that we can take in steps, and we'll get it fine-tuned over a period of time. I wanted to thank Kim Kowalski and Bob both for putting in for this seat. It's great to see that, and Bob, welcome. I'm sure you'll be a good asset to us, and I look forward to working with you on that. Everybody else, a lot of work going on the budget, a lot of work I think yet to do. It's nice to see some of those numbers starting to come true so we can understand exactly where we're at, and some things that'll be coming on future resolutions and things about the account numbers that'll be there will give us a little better picture of exactly how much money we have when we're voting to spend money, and that'll be very helpful. Discussion that I had with the city manager on that. So just thanks everybody. It's starting to get icy in town, so be careful. You know, it's freezing up, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. Councilmember Wells.
Thank you. I'd like to echo the congratulations to the swim team and the coach, and congrats to Kellyanne from Seward Business there. I have sent multiple people in, and she is crushing it. I have so many small business owners or folks that want to be entrepreneur business owners that come to my office, and it's nice to be able to send them to the chamber. So you can always figure out how serious somebody is when they come back to talk to you after meeting with Kellyanne. So I really appreciate that, and congratulations to your seat, and look forward to working with you. Everybody have a great Thanksgiving holiday.
Back and forth doesn't work that way. I'm just realizing. Councilmember DeMoss.
Yes, I want to say again, thank you to Jason for all the work on short-term rentals. Just so many things to consider, and Courtney too. I know that she did so much work on this, and I really think that I'm so thankful for the experts taking this in their hands and really, really thinking it through and thinking of every little thing that could come up and really tackling it so it can be fair in all aspects and for us as a community and what's best for us. So thank you so much. The legislative priority brochure looks awesome, and the chamber probably did that. Though? Community development, both of you guys. Whoever did it, great job. I love it.
Resources, and then we put it and feed it all together.
It looks so good, and I'm excited if I go to Juneau to show it off again. And then congrats to the swim team and to Solomon, the coach. What a cool thing to be able to say you were the coach for Lydia, and then you know, just he's been with them for a long time, and that's just it's great to see a mentor like that for our kids. I want to just speak briefly on the resolution that we passed tonight for Homer Electric Association being the preferred utility to purchase the utility, the Seward Electric, and remind everybody that that will be a special election that the voters decide on. That was not us voting on anything. But from now until then, to please do your best to educate yourself on what that means and, you know, and just what that means and what you're going to be voting on. And I know there's going to be a lot of information coming out, so just do your best to get that information and really take the time to think about it, because it's a big decision and it's going to be coming up. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. And Vice Mayor Osinga.
Thank you. Just congratulations to Coach D'Amico and the swim team for their achievements. That is awesome. Welcome, Councilmember Barnwell. Thank you to Kim for signing up also and running for the seat. Thank you, Community Development, for the presentation. I think it's, from what I've seen, it looks like an awful lot of work went into this, and it's well thought out. So thank you for that. Thank you, administration, for all that you're doing, and be safe out there.
Okay. Oh, I echo a whole bunch of that. Congratulations to the swim team. When I grew up here, we swam in First Lake. It was a lot deeper then, but it was really squishy on the bottom. And it wasn't that cold because my grandpa had a cabin at Snug Harbor on Kenai Lake. That's cold. You turn blue and something like that. But that's why I don't swim. But congratulations, I'm in awe of people who swim. I want to thank both Kim and Bob for applying, and congratulations, Bob. It's good to have you here. We're keeping it in the neighborhood, I guess, right now. So I got to tour, along with Councilmember DeMoss, I got a tour of the animal shelter, and boy, you guys are going to be so impressed when they finally get animals in there. My suggestion is that when we open it up, everybody walks away with a free cat or kitten. So that's my plan. It can happen. Talk to him. Anyway.
I see returns.
Also, it had been suggested by the city manager, she doesn't know I'm going to say this, but I would like to suggest that we might start thinking about a retreat for now that we have a full council. Like we did before, where we get to know each other and also go through rules and regs, and just, it's really good for all of us to kind of get refreshed on those things. I guess it was 1980, I was second. I was fourth and third and second. I had the over 30 record in the Mount Marathon for a while, but my best time was just a little over an hour, maybe a minute over an hour, but I had to wait at the bottom for guys getting up there, you know, because they would just plow ahead on the street, and I'd waste like minutes, 3, 4, at the bottom, just waiting to pass them on the way up. So anyway, I did it 12 times though. So on that note, go out and check out all the new lights. Hopefully every day you'll see something new. And thank you for everyone who came out tonight. And at this point, I will adjourn the meeting at 8:38. Oh, yes.